In the summer of 1835, opponents of revolution advocated the establishment of a consultation to discuss the brewing situation in the Mexican government. They chose this term over convention to avoid suggestions of a revolution that would alarm Mexican political sensibilities. Originally set to meet on October 15th, it would be delayed for 2 weeks because of what would become the opening of hostilities between Texans and Mexicans. It would finally convene on November 4th. Although the consultation was supposed to discuss matters that affected all Texans, it did not represent the entire area. Out of the 98 that were supposed to attend, only 58 did so since hostilities had gripped areas of the state. The consultation debated over 3 main issues: the purpose of the war that seems to be inevitable, the powers and structure of a new Texas government, and who would be Texas's leaders. After 3 days of debate, the consultation announced support of a provisional government aligned with the principles of the Constitution of 1824. Despite this, it also declared that Mexican President Antonio López de Santa Anna had violated the social compact with Texas and that the state had the right to declare its independence. The consultation established an interim structure known as the Organic Law on November 13th. It abolished Mexican political titles and established a governor accompanied with a general council made of members from each municipality. It also provided for the establishment of a judiciary and treasury. Despite Stephen F. Austin's importance to Texas history, the delegates chose Henry Smith as Texas's first American governor, voting 30-22 in favor of Smith. Smith was no diplomat, and it would not take long for him to get into squabbles with the general council. Things got so bad that Smith attempted to dissolve the council, which responded with impeaching the governor. Nothing, however, came of this attempted impeachment. Another important matter that the consultation debated was the establishment of a Texas military and its leadership. It unanimously appointed Sam Houston as the commander-in-chief of the regular army with the rank of Major General. A Virginian by birth, he joined the United States Army at age 20 when the War of 1812 broke out. Within 4 months, he was commissioned as a 3rd lieutenant and served in Andrew Jackson's army. He was wounded 3 times in that conflict, one of which, a rifle ball in his right shoulder, never completely healed. His valorous conduct gained Jackson's attention, and Houston became a protégé, and he became a fierce Jacksonian Democrat. He continued a military career after the War of 1812. He was a 1st lieutenant when he resigned from the army in 1818 and read law in Nashville, his final posting in the army. In addition to a legal career, he was involved in the Tennessee State Militia, ultimately rising to Major General through the support of his fellow officers. He was elected to the United States House of Representatives in 1823 and was re-elected in 1825. In 1827, he became the governor of Tennessee at 34 years old. His road to Texas was a bumpy one. In 1829, he married a young woman, but the marriage mysteriously ended just 11 weeks later. His life fell apart. He resigned the governorship, ending a possible run for the American presidency. He moved to Oklahoma, living amongst the Cherokee. He reportedly drank so heavily that he earned the nickname Big Drunk. Houston always had good relations with Indians. He gained Cherokee citizenship and married a woman of mixed Indian ancestry. In April 1832, he was in Washington, D.C., where he assaulted a congressman with a hickory cane. He was arrested and tried before the House of Representatives, which reprimanded and fined him. He thus made his way to Texas. On December 2, 1832, he crossed the Red River into Texas and got involved in Texas politics. He became a delegate to the Convention of 1833. 2 years later, the consultation made him the commander-in-chief of the regular Texas forces. This appointment would later become an issue since his authority was over the regulars and not volunteer militia. This would be a sticking point that would eventually be resolved. The greatest division among the Texans was whether they were going to take up arms at all. The war and peace parties continued to debate their course of action. The war party, however, was gaining momentum, even though the exact goal of the conflict remained unresolved. Were they fighting to restore the Constitution of 1824, or were they seeking full independence? This divide also carried an ethnic dimension. Tejanos generally supported fighting for the Constitution and against Santa Anna, while many Anglo settlers, such as William Barrett Travis, favored independence. The only point on which Texans broadly agreed was that, in one way or another, they would have to resist Santa Anna. One of the first things that the Texans had to deal with was the military build-up in San Antonio, where there were 1,500 men under Martín Perfecto de Cos, who was also Santa Anna's brother-in-law. The Texans could only muster between 300 and 500 militiamen under Stephen F. Austin. Austin was a lot of things, but he was not a military man. Militia are undisciplined and more democratic than their regular counterparts. They had the ability to vote in or out of their commanding officers. Although Austin was inexperienced and eager to fight, he attempted to inspire his men to attack San Antonio, but they refused and voted him out of command. The militia numbers were starting to fall from 500 to 300, and it appeared that nothing was going to happen. At that moment, Ben Milam appeared and asked who would follow him. On December 5th, 1835, they began to attack the Mexican soldiers inside the city. The fighting devolved into street-by-street fighting that lasted for 5 days. On December 7th, Milam was attempting to observe San Fernando Cathedral from his position and was shot in the head and killed instantly. Despite his death, the Texans gained the upper hand and pushed the Mexican soldiers towards the Valero mission, also known as the Alamo. They took refuge in the building, but they quickly concluded that the Alamo was a terrible site for a fort. On December 10th, Cos surrendered. The Texans' terms were that he promised that to leave and never return. Cos crossed the Rio Grande to await Santa Anna's orders.